Welcome to episode 251 of Sports Geek. On this week's episode, I chat digital and old school web with Casper Heiselberg from FC Copenhagen.
Welcome to Sports Geek, the podcast built for sports digital and sports business professionals. And now, here's your host who wants to hear from you on LinkedIn, Sean Callanan.
Thanks, DJ Joel. Yes, my name is Sean Callanan, and you can find me on LinkedIn. Please connect with me on LinkedIn. If you have listened to the podcast and haven't sent me a LinkedIn invite, please do so. Let me know that you follow and listen to the podcast. Sean Callanan, SeanCallanan, is how you can find me. Also find me on most social media platforms at Sean Callanan on Twitter, or you can follow the Sports Geek channels at Sports Geek on Twitter and all available platforms. And as always, you can find the podcast on all good podcasting platforms, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify. I'm really interested to see how Google Podcasts and the searching into podcasts will start working going forward. And you can also find it at sportsgeekhq.com, where you can find out more about what we do with sports teams, leagues, stadiums and brands, and helping them understand the digital space, run campaigns and the like. But before I get into my chat with Casper Heiselberg from FC Copenhagen, I just want to ask you, have you checked out our newly launched Patreon campaign? You can do that on Patreon, patreon.com/sportsgeek or sportsgeekhq.com/Patreon. Why would you support us via Patreon? Well, we've set up Patreon to help support the content that we're producing, to pay for the cost to produce this podcast and our newsletter, SG Sports Geek News. And so if you get the newsletter and you like the newsletter and you click on it, or you listen to the podcast, which you're doing right now, you can contribute. It helps pay for the costs of producing the podcast. And there's also options for sponsors and brands who want to reach the Sports Geek audience. So if you have checked out last week's Sports Geek News or checked out the show notes for any episode, this episode will be sportsgeekhq.com/251. You will see supporters, Patreon supporters, at the bottom of the show notes. Please go check them out. Click on their icons, check out their websites. I'd be really interested in your feedback. There's 3 levels. There's a supporter. You're a person that listens and consumes the content. That's $4 a month. Cost of a cup of coffee per month. And you pretty much get 4 emails and 4 podcasts for most months. So I think that's pretty good value if you're a listener. I'd love to have you support as a supporter. Whereas if you are a brand or a technology partner that wants to reach my audience, you can do so at 3 different levels. If you're a startup, you're one of our startup series, and you want to get started and reach the sports technology audience, you can become a startup supporter. That's for early stage startups in the sports technology space. Or you can become a silver or gold supporter, which is varying levels of opportunities. But they include getting your links in every single show notes and every single Sports Geek news. So if you would like to take that up, please check out sportsgeekhq.com/Patreon. If you've signed up in the last week before I've recorded this or after I've recorded this intro, thank you very much, and you'll get a shout out in a future episode. Now, onto my chat with Casper Heiselberg from FC Copenhagen. Very happy to catch up with Casper Heiselberg, Head of Digital for FC Copenhagen. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much.
It has been a long time coming. We did catch up when I was in Denmark in January 2018, and it's taken till this time to lock in a time. So I'm very thankful for you to lock in a time we can continue the conversation.
Yeah. It has been a long time since you visited us, and I'm looking forward to this conversation.
Yeah, so I mean, we did catch up when I was in Copenhagen. But how did you? I normally like to start as how did you get into sport? What was your first, I guess, big break, or how did you first get into the world of sports and sports digital in a certain extent?
That was actually when I was 17 years old, back in 2003.
Yep.
I was a big fan of Man United, and I was very fascinated by this whole internet, HTML. I wanted to become a web developer, but I was also very much interested in sports journalism.
Yep.
So I created this website about Man United back in 2003, which I still own.
Yeah, so this is still early web, right? So you're not firing up a WordPress or even blog, or maybe Blogger might have been around there then.
No, yeah.
So this was really early. So I'm quite lucky that you didn't steal the Sports Geek moniker. You're getting in that early, building the website. And so, what was the website? Was it really just a Man U fan site out of Denmark?
Yeah, it's a news website where we cover the Manchester United every day. We've done so since 2003. We've had a bunch of voluntary writers. Some are now journalists.
Yep.
I built the website back then because I knew a bit HTML and I wanted to learn PHP and MySQL. So I just started developing a website, which turned into Old Trafford DK. As you say, it was before WordPress, it was before Drupal, it was before Joomla, it was before Facebook, and I think MySpace was probably was there back then, but it was really early days. And I built a website, built a system which turned out to be a CMS, which I didn't know about back then. And I actually run it till 2011, where I then moved into a proper CMS.
Okay. And so that was really a side hustle fan project, one exploring like your skill set and like learning HTML, getting your hands dirty. I think it's great advice if you're like, how do I break in? It's like, well, build stuff, find out how to do stuff, find out how to use the platform. So then that's a side hustle. And did that really fire you up to go sports journalism, technology, engaging fans was something that you wanted to do? So how did you move from, I guess, a side hustle, this is a passion, to start making it a career?
It was really, I did it out of passion, and I still run it in my spare time. We have written over 29,000 articles about Man United since 2003, which equals like more than 5 articles a day.
Yep.
And it really it turned into becoming more of I've always run it as an interest and pure passion based. Never earned money on it, but I've also seen it as you say, as a playground for my developer skills, for my digital understanding. I've been able to be very critical of things coming up because I've also tried a lot of things over the years.
Yeah.
I've run it since 2003, and then in 2008, I started studying at CBS, Copenhagen Business School, did a bachelor and a master's degree in business administration and also creative industries, specialized in creative industries and cultural industries, which led me into sports also on a more professional level. I worked at the IOC Congress in 2009.
Okay.
That was a congress where Rio won the host of the Olympics.
2016 Olympics. Yep.
Yeah, exactly. And also worked at the WTA tournament, which was held in Copenhagen for 3 years, from 2010 to 12, I think.
Yep. And
then did all all my assignments or projects at university was more or less related to to sports and digital.
Yep.
I did my bachelor degree. But that was actually that was not so digital, but I looked at the possibility for hosting the European Championships in football in Denmark and Sweden, which we're now hosting next year.
Okay.
Because of the change of format. So we're hosting it here at the stadium, actually. And I wrote my master thesis on how football clubs could use Facebook in order to create fan identification. So I obviously took Manchester United as a case because they are really big on Facebook and I know them quite well.
Yeah.
So I did that, which gave me a really good understanding of how digital and how social media works with the whole fan environment. Also the more academic side of things and strategic side. And then I got the job at the Danish Football League.
Okay.
Where I was a digital manager.
And so that's just running content and the digital side of the business, I guess the digital side for the Danish league?
Yeah, we had, at the time we had 12. We moved or expanded to 14 teams in the league. So I relaunched the league website, which is really interesting because it's you had to ask yourself what role does a league website play in the whole ecosystem of the sport.
And that's especially coming off those like 2010 to 2014 years of everyone's pushed so hard into social and Facebook and the clubs are driving a whole bunch of their own initiatives and you're trying to, I guess, reframe where the league fits.
Yeah, exactly. And it moved into then I became involved. One of the things that we could see a spot where the league website could fit in was in terms of statistics. So with tracking statistics from Opta, for example.
Yep.
You didn't really use that in Denmark some years ago, and now it's been rolled out on the league website, and the clubs are using it also on the more commercial, in a more commercial way. So that was really one of the intentions. But really, it was it was really interesting process to really try to accept your role in the ecosystem. The clubs are owning their own content, and you should not, as a league, you should not really. You should really be careful because otherwise you are stepping on their toes. Sometimes
it is a tough one when, as a league, you want to have a consistent look and feel, and you want a consistent experience for fans across all the teams. But when you've got an environment where all the teams are controlling a lot of their own digital assets and their own websites, it can become inconsistent. But you're right. The teams know their fans best, and so it's a tough balance for when you're at that league level. Yeah,
and especially in Europe, where it's very much based on association football, and the clubs have a huge local history.
Yep. Some
have even more than 100 years of history and legacy and heritage. So the fans, and they're not particularly fans of the league, but they are of the certain football team. So it's also very hard as a league to brand yourself in that sense.
So that brought you to FC Copenhagen in 2016, yeah?
Yeah. I got offered a role in here as head of digital, where my first project was to relaunch the club website, which was like a dream project for me.
Yep.
Coming from my website background as well. So I took a lot of insights from my own career and owning a website, and then relaunched FCK DK as one of my first projects.
So give us a bit of info give us some info on the website, and then we'll get some more info actually on FC Copenhagen. So what's the tech stack? What were some of the pieces of the puzzle when building out the website fck.dk for people looking for it. What's a platform that it's sitting on?
It's a Drupal 8 CMS. And that was actually chosen before I started. But luckily, I had experience with Drupal on my own website. I built Old Trafford PK on Drupal as well. So I knew that quite well, which is really, it has been really...
That's quite fortuitous that you did have that experience.
Yeah, but it can also be a disadvantage because then you can also look through the codes and look through what the programmers are doing.
So was it an external build? Did you hire an agency or a development team to build it, or was it? Yeah. How did you go through that process?
The agency was already chosen when I came in. Basically, just when I came in, they had started the process a bit. Yep. So I started in December and I told them to stop development or stop the whole process, take a few steps back. And then I spent the first month, because I started in December, with Christmas and the season just ended. We have a very long winter break here in Denmark. So there were not many people at the office. So we took a step back and then I went through the organization and tried to understand, okay, how does this website, this platform work into the different departments? And it turned out even our HR or our finance department are using the website and the archives when paying out bonuses for the players, because that is really our database of matches.
Okay.
And we also understood that, okay, FC Copenhagen is... that year or the next year, we celebrated our 25th anniversary as a football club, and we obviously had all the results from the beginning, from the first friendly game against Grasshoppers, and we wanted to really dig into that and use that as also a way to build legacy and because that is the main archive of the club. So we did a lot in understanding how does this website actually work in the organization. How can we utilize it even more and better?
Yep.
And really looked into also analytics in understanding. Like I could see that 40% of our visitors didn't really come through our front page. They came through social media directly into an article.
Yep.
Etc.
So give us a bit of background on FC Copenhagen, so people know a bit more about the team and about the club.
We were established in '92 in a joint like two clubs joined together.
Okay.
And we are playing our matches here at the Telia Parken Stadium, right in Copenhagen. You were here last year, and you could see the magnificent view we have of the whole city. We have in the last couple of years we have been very lucky to win the championship. And also qualified for the group stages of both the Europa League and Champions League. We're playing Europa League tonight.
Yes.
So we are. I would say that we are really we are a big club in a small country.
Yep.
That's also my struggle sometimes, because when I'm looking out in the landscape, then it's very hard to look at clubs that I can really compare ourselves to.
So understanding that you are a big club, but in a big fish small pond, as you were just saying there, what does so how many people are turning up to a game on a regular basis? How many people are you getting attending? Because digital is very much a big part of ticketing. Like if you go to your website, there's a big big call to action to be buying tickets. How many people are turning up, and how much are you working with your ticketing team to make sure you get the cheeks and the seats?
We have this year we have an average attendance of I'll just check so I'm.
What does the stadium hold?
It holds 38,000 seats, but it was not. It was built also as a national stadium. We have an ambition to attract 20,000 spectators on average.
Yep.
And right now we are around 15.
Okay. Is there particular games or local rivalries where you do get a close to full stadium? What are those games like? Who are you playing against then? It's
usually Brøndby, our arch rivals just outside Copenhagen.
Okay.
Their rivalry is intense, and it's really I can really advise everyone to come and see a Copenhagen derby.
Yep.
You can also look at some of our videos on social media, on YouTube and Facebook. Check out our videos from those derbies because it's really an amazing atmosphere, and also our video production team, they're doing a remarkable job in actually really showing the atmosphere, how intense it is, and how great that experience is.
Yeah, I mean, you've shared some videos, and I'll put some in the show notes. But it is very much a crazy atmosphere, especially around those big matches. You mentioned the website was sort of your, I guess, first task coming into the role, building out the website, and because it's a tough thing, because especially when you start consulting with everybody, the menus alone can just be added on and become unwieldy. You built that website, and it's got us working, and it's very slick, responsive, all of those kind of things. What was your next task that you went to tackle from a digital point of view once you've sort of said, I'm happy enough with the website? You're never perfect, you never love it. You always want to fix something, but you're like, I've done the website project. What was your next thing that you wanted to tackle from a digital point of view?
We have engaged in a lot of different projects. One of them that was a feature that we rolled out just after your visit last year.
Yep.
It's called Tele Replay, where we integrated a solution in our app, which means that together with our stadium sponsor, which is a telephone operation or service operator, we integrated a solution which allows you to rewatch or replay key incidents of the match just 8 seconds after it has happened. So at every game, at every FC Copenhagen game, we have a team sitting and they basically record the key incidents. There could be a chance on goal. It could be a red card, a tackle. Some of the things that we cannot really show on the Jumbotron.
Yep.
But you're able to see that, and also if you missed it because you went to the toilet or you were talking to your sitting neighbor, then you can rewatch it again. And that was really a way to really improve the fan experience, but also leverage the Wi-Fi in the stadium.
Yeah, that was a bit that I was going to ask. So it's a feature. It's like geo-blocked. It's only available for people at the stadium as another incentive to be there. Like, you're not going to be worried that you're going to miss something, because if you look away, you can actually just open up in your phone.
Yeah, exactly.
And so how important was it having the Wi-Fi there? Because it's like
we cannot do it without the Wi-Fi.
The stress there of, and so was the Wi-Fi was that there in place obviously before this, and then this was a really good way of activating the Wi-Fi.
Yeah, it was, and that really tells a lot about FC Copenhagen, because as I see it, then we've been very innovative. Also before my time, we were one of the first stadiums with free Wi-Fi.
Yep.
And also when I took over in 2016, I took over a landscape with 14 websites. We had 2 apps. We had We are on all social media. We actually really, it was really, it was a bit of a problem for me because we were actually doing quite well from the outside. We are, if you look at on social media, then just if you look at the engagements over the last season, then on Facebook we would be in top 6 in La Liga and top 8 in the Italian league, just based on interactions on Facebook.
Yep.
So we are so it's really I think we're really much ahead of our own role sometimes, or in a place in the football landscape.
And so, I mean, so do you feel like this, because there's a little bit of, are you competing against yourself? So, like you mentioned it before, like you're not at the level of the the behemoths of Man U and Real and those kind of things. But how much do you, I guess, look to them for inspiration to go, well, what can we do in our market, in our stadium, to keep delivering for our fans? Because you really want to be looking at them as I guess leaders and what they're doing to see what you can, what I say, steal with pride and bring back to FC Copenhagen.
Yeah, that's what we obviously do. We are looking at, I think, all sizes of clubs. If you look at Southampton, yep, I think they're doing some really cool stuff on in digital. Yep. If you also look on their website, then you can see that we are using the same left menu like they do. Yep. So we're also looking. I think we have a lot of ways to get inspiration. It's very difficult for us to compare ourselves to the likes of Man United.
Yeah, but it just becomes a scale thing in that space. Like you can still activate the same things.
Yeah, but also they are not struggling to fill out the stadium.
Yeah,
we do that. So they are innovative in terms of reach.
Yep. In
terms of acting globally. So they're opening up offices in America and in Asia.
Yep.
We obviously don't do that.
So then
we
how
accept
do you,
our role, but we need to be innovative in order to fill up our stadium, for example.
And so what are you doing in the digital space, like to have some innovation in the ticketing piece, whether it's to attract new fans, make appropriate usage of season tickets, those kind of things. What are you doing to support your ticket sales department?
Yeah, we have a really great guy, Mikkel, who's our ticketing manager. He's been really having this innovative approach in together with our ticket vendor, RoboTicket. They came up with this subscription way of attending football matches. So instead of just having match tickets and season tickets, where you lose all your customers at the end of the season.
Yep.
Then we have introduced this subscription-based ticket product where you sign up for I think it equals $10.
Don't worry about converting it, but it's like a Netflix subscription.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think you don't see that many places, and we couldn't really look many elsewhere in the sports industry for similar products, but it has turned out to be really a success.
So with that product, what do fans get with that subscription? Is there a certain part of the stadium that they get to go to? Is there a certain amount of games they get to use on that subscription?
They obviously, because we don't know if you're playing in European competitions, then it gives you access to the stand that you bought it for.
Okay.
We have actually even because one of our popular stands is often sold out. Then we have actually introduced a more flexible subscription product where you, if you don't make it on time in issuing your ticket for the match, so the fan has to actively issue the ticket.
Yep.
Then you can choose another stand and pay the difference in. So
it's a bit of a pre-sale plus because you've got this. Football has this nature of you don't know the full schedule. Like, your local league games will be there, but you don't know if you're going to qualify and have these other games. You actually can't say, congratulations, you're a season ticket holder, here's your 32 games or your 41 games if you're an NBA fan. And so that irregularity in the draw does make the ticketing piece really tough because you go, we've got a Europa game tonight and you've got to market that whole stadium. And that's the challenge. Okay, and so
luckily we have. Luckily, we also have I think we have a really strong also marketing team, and also our fan, our SLO, the supporters liaison officer. We have a really good teamwork between us, and we understand each other's objectives, and we have been really able to really lift also the attendance. Through these new products.
And do you think that's because I think there is a similar product. I think the Atlanta Braves ran something similar in the Major League Baseball, and they're seeing stadiums sort of change. I think the Cowboys in Dallas are doing something similar where you buy a certain ticket, whether it's a subscription or these kinds, where you get to just stand in a bar. So you don't actually get to a seat, but it's an experience. Do you think that that's where those kind of tickets might evolve for you to attract a different demographic to come to the games?
I think that you will see some new ways of selling tickets in the future. And my role is probably to support those, also the ideas and the demands from our ticketing manager and also our marketing department. And we are always trying to look at new ways to work with our ticket portfolio.
And are the Copenhagen football fans digitally savvy? Like having digital tickets in some parts of the world is really, really difficult because people are still either holding on, in my part of the world, we're still holding on to our plastic card. Like we want to have our card around our neck. In the US, they still want the paper tickets. How has been the adoption of digital?
It has been really good. Copenhagen is very digital savvy.
Yep.
Especially like a few years ago, you would see a trend in Europe where they were going for cashless stadiums.
Yep.
Like we didn't need to do that here because everyone has a credit card and pay with credit cards. I cannot even remember when I last time bought something with cash.
Yep.
And all our tickets are digital, so they have in the last 3 or 4 years, they have been integrated in our app as well. So you can use your season ticket and you can see all your tickets in the app. So there's never been a problem for us, and that's really I think that's a really strong position that Copenhagen has. Also, we have universities, and we are really leading in the digital world.
I think like I spent a week in Copenhagen, and you're right. I got by the poker money that I won versus Jesper Nyholm, and I didn't. I just used a card in most places. But that must be really good from a digital point of view, like to be able to capture the data, but then also be driving people into the app. Yes, they're going to use it for ticketing, but then they're using it for other things like the replay and things like that.
Yeah, exactly. And it really leads on to the next big project that I started in here. After we relaunched the website and we did a few things on the app, like the Tele Replay, then I basically put a halt to all digital development because I wanted to really focus on the foundation of our digital landscape. So we started this digital transformation process.
Yep.
Which it has even become a really one of the strategic objectives of our new corporate strategy.
Okay.
What I could see was that we have a lot of, like, from the outside we are really good, and we have a really broad and strong landscape, but all the different channels were not often talking together. And we don't have a CRM, we don't have a data warehouse where we could collect all this data and consolidate it for new knowledge.
Yep.
So we started that process a year ago. We have done a digital partnership with one of the leading IT consultancies in Denmark and Scandinavia called Netcompany.
Okay.
Where we basically we did a preliminary analysis where we took more or less the whole organization into put that into the context of transformation, and starting with the fan databases, and then we're moving on from there. The whole I think the keyword to everything in that project is to create relevance.
Yep.
To all our stakeholders. So one of the examples could be that we are what we are doing right now is that we are talking to season ticket holders who have had their season ticket for 20 years in the same way as we talk to season tickets who have just signed up.
Yep.
But you need to have the data in order to to be able to do that.
Yeah, I mean you are now effectively on the CRM journey. Everyone's on that. But I think that just getting started, and I guess the realization that you've got to do it differently. I'd be really fascinated to hear what maybe some of the early findings are. But normally when you go through these kind of projects, it's that, like, these audiences, like I call them, these audiences of opportunity, where you go, holy hell, we haven't been speaking to these people. Like, they're whatever segment they might be. They might be a one ticket buyer that have just been put in a different pile, or someone that bought 3 tickets and we didn't talk to them about buying 6 tickets.
Exactly.
That's
and
where
you
I
don't
think
know the 2 others.
Yeah.
If I buy 3 tickets, then I don't know who's actually consuming those tickets.
Yeah.
That's why, and that's also why what we've done is that we've taken like a very horizontal approach to the phase 1, where we consolidate our tickets. So consolidate our tickets, systems, turnstiles, marketing systems, and we also want to integrate the fan shop.
Yep.
And just by doing that, we can suddenly also see if we put any resources into getting people to come in 10 minutes before the average attending time, what effect does that have on the fan shop? Does it take away any revenue or visitors from the fan shop? How does it affect the turnstiles and for the stewards? How does it affect the food and beverage? But also, how does it affect the atmosphere in the stadium? Perhaps we could integrate it with some sound system, some recorders that could record the sound level. And also, how does it affect our net promoter score of the match?
Yeah, definitely.
That's some of the things. So we have started in the very basic, and then we're moving into the second phase where we're going to use the data. Basically, first phase is to create data.
Yep.
Second is to use the data, and the third phase is really to utilize the data for new platforms.
Okay. Well, that's an exciting project. I look forward to seeing how it goes, and I guess that I think the primary thing is that you find new ways to bring in revenue, whether that's more people turning up from a ticketing point of view, or some really exciting commercial opportunities once you've got a better understanding of those fans.
Yeah, I think one of revenue and getting more people in is really obviously one of the objectives, but also breaking down the silos in the organization. That's a very common problem also when listening to your podcast. Then it seems like it's a problem everywhere.
Well, it is. If you've got different departments that all have pieces of information about that fan and they haven't been talking to one another, like it's the classic, that's what CRM's there for. Like we need to know that they went to a game, attended a game, bought something in the fan shop and opened up the emails. If they're all in 4 different databases, then you don't have the full picture. And so that first phase that you're talking about of just consolidating all that data so we can, get that 360-degree view of the customer, which everyone tries to get to.
And our business.
Yeah.
I think that's really because we're also looking at, we're also going to use it for ways to look into, okay, how can we grow for example, our attendance. We have collaborated with the 2 circles and using their stadium sellout model in order to identify, okay, how can we grow and how can we meet our objectives of hitting 20,000 spectators in average in our stadium.
Yep.
So right now we're really good in having so many season ticket holders as we do. I think it's around 12,000 season ticket holders and subscribers that we have. So we need to get more and more casual fans or spectators to come.
And it's a completely different marketing strategy. Like to be selling a membership is completely different than to come to one game, because it's the classic. We can sell 100,000 tickets to 100,000 people, and then we've got a database of 100,000, or we can sell 10,000 season tickets to 10,000 people, and you end up with completely different data sets, and it's a completely different strategy to get those 2 different fans, and sometimes it is running the numbers. I know we've worked with a couple of clients that have gone, membership looks great, and it would be great to have that revenue, but actually it's better. You might actually get better revenue from a single game ticket sale, and you end up getting more data. So, that's you can head down that path. So.
It's a very complex world that we actually work in, because how do you actually onboard new spectators or new fans? There's no perfect way to onboarding a fan. We looked at that in our preliminary analysis of our data project. We try to really analyze the onboarding of new fans, and also you can do it on match day level.
Yep.
But if you have season ticket holders or subscribers, then it starts perhaps in June. Perhaps it started a year ago.
Yeah.
And how does the onboarding process work for a completely new fan? You have always been. I don't think that you will ever attend a football match in the age of 30. You have never done it before, and you're completely open. And then we have a fully integrated onboarding process for you. It's not going to happen in our culture, I think, because the sport is so big. Yeah, so you have some affinity to the sport, you have some affinity to the club already when you're young.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much for this chat. We'll jump into the Sports Geek closing 5. Do you remember the first sports event you ever attended?
I think that was here at the stadium for a national game between Denmark and Slovenia. Denmark won 4-0.
Okay.
In 97. I think, I'm not coming from a sports family, so my interest in football it has been my own.
So then I'm going to give a follow-up question. I don't normally do this, but because of your Man U fandom, when was the first time you saw Man U in real life?
In real life, that was the year after, also at the stadium. They played against Brøndby.
Okay.
Twice, actually, that season. And then I finally got my first game at Old Trafford in 2004.
Terrific.
And
you would have been.
I don't know how many games.
Yeah. You would have been to a few games in your time, both either working or as a fan. Do you have a favourite food memory at a sports event, or a particular or a go-to food when you're at a sports event?
I don't really eat food when I go to sports event. It's I think perhaps going to American sports where you get nachos with a really cheese sauce on top is one of my favorites.
It does seem to be the thing that attracts people, the nachos and the cheese helmet.
Yeah. But it's also it's very different in Europe because the sports are so different. So you don't have the same windows of opportunity to actually spend perhaps 10 minutes in cooking at a stadium, or even 5 minutes. It really has to go extremely fast in football.
Football everyone sits there and everyone's involved in the game for the whole half. There's no walking around and getting a hot dog, so it doesn't lend itself for that. Completely understandable.
And that's also a thing that you need to keep in mind when you're developing an app for match day experience.
Completely.
Also going back to that.
Yeah. What's the first app you open in the morning?
That would be Twitter.
Twitter. Okay. Who is someone that you follow or read or listen to that you think the podcast listeners should follow, and why?
You?
No, that's not. That's not a setup question. But thank you very much.
Okay, I think that a guy that I follow and I've been following for years now has been Benjamin Stoll.
Yep.
Who used to be head of digital at Bayern Munich and now works at FIFA.
So a former guest. I'm just trying to now I'm trying to stall to try to find out what episode. I used to remember how many episodes. But when you've done 200 of them, it's hard to remember every single one. No, I can't find it. It should be easier. But he has been on the podcast.
Yeah, and he shares a lot of knowledge. He shares a lot of insights, and both in terms of digital, social media, but also technology.
Yeah.
And he's a great guy. I met him in London last year.
Terrific. And so lastly, you might have given the spoiler alert there, but what social media platform is your MVP? And I might ask you personally, and then I might ask you to put your FC Copenhagen hat on and say which platform's the one that's working for the club the best. So what's yours?
Personally, I would say Twitter. And LinkedIn is growing a bit upon me.
Yep.
LinkedIn is a bit like Facebook was 5 years ago in terms of sharing things in your newsfeed.
Yep. And then from the club's point of view?
Then I would say Instagram is really the one where we see most interactions on right now.
And it's the same thing. Are you getting terrific engagement on the stories as a lot of people are getting?
Yeah, and we do. I don't know if you saw a few weeks ago we signed up Niklas Bentner, a Danish superstar in football. He used to play for Arsenal, among other clubs. And the reach that we got on that, we signed him up on deadline day, and we signed him like 15 minutes before it closed, so almost midnight. And during that day, one of our rivals had tried to start, I don't know, some rivalry or something by starting following him. So all the rumors said that he was joining FC Midtjylland.
Yep.
So when we signed him up, then our production team or our editorial team, they did a really cool video on Instagram where he was filmed going into his Instagram account and just blocking the team that just followed him.
Okay.
And then looked up and gave a big smile, and then he had signed for FC Copenhagen instead.
So I love these kind of stories from a digital point of view. So take us through the timeline, and I'm going off track here, but it's fine. It's my podcast. So take us through the timing of that scenario. Like because again, it's digital. It's sometimes the last to know when. But then there's also this massive need for you and your team to be the one that breaks the news. So, what was the timing of a signing like that? Because deadline day is a massive day, and all of those things in football. When were you brought into the loop, and what was the turnaround for that kind of creative and doing that kind of thing?
Yeah, that one was really chaotic, and I was not involved in it. It was, I think the whole transfer only took 2 hours.
Yep.
From what I've heard or read, and so it actually blew everyone's day that night. There were very few who knew it.
But it is classic sports,
luckily,
isn't it?
Yeah, luckily we have a really good, I would say, editorial team. They do all the videos. They do. We're very much video first based, and we have been that for many years. And everyone knows. Also, our sports department. Everyone knows how important it is, and also we could also see that Niklas Bentner, that one was huge.
Yep.
The next day we started selling shirts, and it got sold out within a few hours. And our website, it was the second most viewed article on our club website for 3 years.
So it is.
And the whole, if you look at the whole engagement that week on social media, then it was the same as in May when we won the championship.
Yeah. So it is just a case of like it's the same the world over. Something happens in operations from a football point of view, and then the digital team, is either hearing the same rumors and start brainstorming things, and you're trying to figure out what might happen, and then when it's signed, you're like, cool, everybody, let's do it. It's pretty much that's pretty much it, isn't it?
And also this one, from what I've heard from our head of communication, like he's really been, because that transfer. There have been talks about that transfer for years because he's Copenhagen born and bred. I actually went to school with him. Yep. I was a few years older than him, but we went to the same school. And so he had already thought of some ideas, obviously, and was prepared for that possibility. He's been on alert for years, I think.
It's good. I mean, I know I work with a team that had a player doing a press conference, and they didn't know if the player was going to say they were going to re-sign or go to another team. And so we just had to come up with scenarios on how we're going to tweet it depending on the result. So we had 2 sets of graphics and 2 different strategies on whether he stayed or whether he went. Because and the digital department walked in the press conference like everybody else and didn't know what the player was going to say. So it's a bit like, LeBron.
It's a bit like when you're playing a knockout stage in the Champions League or Europa League. You don't know if you qualify or you don't, and you need to prepare for both scenarios.
Oh well.
So it comes down. I think it comes down to preparation, and also that you're very open about the scenarios.
Yeah, and it is about giving you and your team, I guess, the creative license and know how much that creative license is.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
That takes a lot of trust.
Yeah, and also I think it's also be open about the possibility of a negative story.
Completely.
What we are often seeing in sports is that you're very much driven by the sports department, perhaps sports mentality, that you always look for the next match, that you should always aim for being more successful, but obviously you cannot really, as working with digital, you cannot really affect the performance on the pitch.
No.
So you need to really you need to work with all scenarios sometimes, even though you don't want to.
Definitely. Well, Casper, thank you very much for coming on the podcast. Where can people message you, send you a tweet, connect with you to tell you that they've listened to you on the podcast? What are the best places to find you on the internet?
I'm digital, so I'm everywhere. I'm on Twitter. My handle is Heiselberg, basically my last name. On Instagram, Heiselberg was taken, so it's Heiselgram instead.
And then your name on LinkedIn.
Exactly.
Well, thank you very much. Unfortunately, when I was there in January, there was no games on, so I do have to make a return visit to get to one of those big games and help you.
We're playing a really big game tonight in a few hours, so if you're really fast and you can
Yeah, I don't think the flight from Melbourne to Copenhagen is going to get me there in 6 hours. If it did, I would be in Europe more often. But best of luck. Please go to fck.dk to find out the results, because this episode will be published after the result, obviously. But thanks very much for coming on the podcast. Good to catch up with you again.
Thanks for having me.
New workshops on audience, content, distribution, valuation, and pitch following Sports Geek's Digital to Dollars process. Go to digitaltodollars.com.
Thanks again to Casper. You can connect with him on LinkedIn. He did say that he is using LinkedIn more often. Or you can send him a tweet on Twitter. Heiselberg, HEISELBERG. And as always, you can go and check out the links at sportsgeekhq.com/251, this episode 251. Before I do wrap up this episode, just want to talk a little bit about the Digital to Dollars process and how it can work for you or your team. Do you need a digital review or that actually brings in money? I love reviewing digital and content, but I really like focusing on the commercial returns that digital can bring. And so there's multiple ways that we are developing delivery of the Digital Dollars process. It can be done as a two-day workshop with a single brand, working with your teams across multiple departments. Sort of what we discussed there with Casper, working with your digital teams, working with your data teams, working with your ticketing teams. So the 5 pillars are knowing your audience, knowing your content, knowing your distribution, what are the different channels you've got, and then it really takes the commercial sharp focus of knowing your value, what are you going to price everything at, and then knowing your pitch, how do you frame that up into a pitch. Some of the different ways that we're working with the Digital Dollars process, it can be broken down to just be a digital review and do those first 3 parts, but then we're also working with orgs that are working with multiple clubs, and we're building out a Digital to Dollars education program, which starts with a single day with multiple clubs, similar to what I ran with the AFL last year, but then follow-up sessions with the individual clubs, either in a one-on-one session or check-in sessions from a webinar point of view. So please check it out, digitaltodollars.com. Send me an email if you're interested in understanding more and how you can apply it to your club. But if you're sitting there with great digital numbers and an engaged audience but not quite sure how to drive more digital revenue, that's exactly what Digital Dollars is built for. So send me an email, Sean@sportsgeekhq.com. Before I do wrap up, one more final shout out. If you've got this far, please check out our Patreon campaign. Go to sportsgeekhq.com/Patreon. Patreon. Shout out to Matt Scully from SportsRam, a former podcast guest from sportsram.com. He was a startup supporter and he's upgraded to a silver supporter. So thank you very much, Matt. Check out sportsram.com if you are looking to travel and get tickets to a sporting event anywhere in the world. And also get in touch with Matt if you are a sporting franchise or a team that wants to connect with tourists that are coming into your part of the world. Thanks again, Matt. And please come on board. If you haven't already, please come on board as a Patreon supporter of Sports Geek. Until next week, my name is Sean Callanan, and you've been listening to Sports Geek.
Join Sports Geek Nation access to exclusive Slack and Facebook groups with regular Q&A sessions with Sean Callanan. Go to sportsgeeknation.com to join. Need help with your digital rate card? Not sure how to price your assets? Is there a disconnect between digital and commercial? That is where Sean works best, in digital divorce counselor mode. Book a time for a call with Sean to discuss the Sports Geek process. Go to sportsgeekhq.com/phone call.
Go to sportsgeekhq.com for more sports digital marketing resources.